Following a down season and the roster getting older mixed with a pretty bad draft, McVay would end up stepping away from the Los Angeles Rams, and in his place they would hire Marshall Faulk, expected to elevate this roster, bring that players coach mentality, and really build upon what was a pretty young team. Unfortunately, through 3 seasons, just nothing good happened. Continually had bad quarterback play with a lot of losses, a lot of turnovers stacking up. And after beginning season 4 with 2 straight massive losses to division rivals, 42-14 against the Seahawks and 52-14 against the Cardinals, Marshall Faulk would be fired. In his place, they would bring back McVay out of retirement, at least at an interim level, and would give him the full season to see if either party would want to continue their roles together into the future. And in McVay's first game back, they would be losing to the Buccaneers 23-3 at the beginning of the 4th quarter with a 3rd down they needed to convert, but it would be Cam Akers who would provide them some life, getting them down to the 26. Throughout our time with Faulk at head coach, Akers really was the guy for this offense. Unfortunately, the quarterback play just continued to be bad, and a lot of times penalties didn't help out. But every now and then, they would, as a face mask would get us down inside the 15. From there, it would be another handoff that got stuffed. This time, Boley, the rookie, checking in, who was very much looking forward to learning behind Faulk. But that time would be cut short. He would have to rely on learning a lot from Akers, as they would have a 2nd and 13. A throw down to the bottom would be dropped, as one of the young outside receivers would start to see a little bit of time here. 3rd and 13 pass rush would get right through and would set up a 4th and 13. But with the losses this team has stacked up, they would go for it on 4th and long, as it would be an open throw and a drop on the outside, just solidifying what this team has been through. An option there to finally find your first touchdown, to only be dropped and give the ball back over to the Bucs. But ultimately, it would be another loss in McVay's time back, as this team just continues to struggle to score. And the losses would just keep flowing, with 3 straight to start McVay's time here with the team, including a 32-24 loss against the Kansas City Chiefs and a 28-21 loss against the Patriots that did see at least a good 4th quarter. But in week 6 against the Philadelphia Eagles, Caleb Harris, the rookie hidden dev quarterback, would make his return from his early rib injuries that occurred in week 1. In Philadelphia, we would see the Eagles continue to strike, but it's at least a tied game, going a little bit back and forth. And as halftime would hit, it would be 14-7, Eagles still in front. Finally, we would draw back a field goal, but still down as the last few minutes would tick off, the Eagles would separate. In his first game back, Caleb Harris would throw 27 times, completing 18 of them, but for only 102 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And by the time the end of the season would come, it would be mostly losses for this team, though they would surprisingly get a win 21-13 against the Vikings and 28-23 against the Cowboys. But it was a dismal season that just continued the play that this team has shown before. The team would finish the 30th ranked offense, and the defense was so bad they didn't even rank them. In his rookie year, Caleb Harris would throw 18 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 62% completed for a little over 2,500 yards. Bo Harold, in his short time out there, proved that he still does not have a future as a starting quarterback. Akers would continue to be the only real good part of this offense, going for a little over 900 yards, though just 5 touchdowns, 2 fumbles, emphasizing the fact that this team can't score. Jeff Boley, the rookie running back, on a pretty decent amount of carries, just 3 yards an average, 5 touchdowns, but he would not fumble. Terrence Marshall would end up being the team's leading receiver this year, 887 yards and 10 touchdowns. Meanwhile, Ed Jarrett, the once thought #1 receiver, or guy that would become that of this team, just 2 touchdowns. Palmer would have 2 for Parkinson, and just overall a fairly lack of much of anything still in the passing game, as Akers and Boley would tack on some touchdowns as well. Though this would mark the first year that Ethan Graham would be our leading tackler and Kenneth Murray Jr. would not be, though still both of them over 100 tackles. Neither one of them have ever made the Pro Bowl and arguably should, but the team were getting quite a few tackles for a loss. Nick Bell had a pretty dominant year as a true DT with 19. Michael Pierce ended up playing a good bit, racked up 16, and Johnny Smith had 14. But what the team still lacks is that #1 edge rusher. Kevin Flowers would end up leading the team, the rookie, with 4.5. Graham would have 4. We continue to have just inside backers be our second leading sackers. It's just not good. Nick Bell would have 3.5, 3 for Johnny Smith, and the other rookie in Larry Basley would only have 2 tackles for a loss and a sack. But first-year safety Daxton Hill would lead the team in interceptions with 3. Peter Rice, coming off of a season with 4, would half that this season with 2, and Kenneth Murray Jr. and Josh Conley would each have 1. At the end of the season, it would be another Super Bowl championship for the Kansas City Chiefs. 42-35, Patrick Mahomes, the MVP. Bryce Young, though, the NFL MVP, with Mike McCarthy, the coach of the year with the Cowboys, despite not even making it to the Super Bowl. But they did have a lot of guys winning the awards. Offensive Player of the Year went to Dak Prescott, and Defensive Player of the Year went to Micah Parsons. And this, unfortunately, would be the final career year for Michael Pierce. He racked up some tackles for a loss, but it was in a really bad effort, as the Rams would just win 2 games. Now, as the first offseason would hit back under McVay, there's still necessarily not an answer at quarterback. At running back, you definitely have your top 2 guys, and it looks like Jeff Boley soon would be taking over Cam Akers' starting role. As for the receivers, just 4 remain with the team. The starting tight end Tommy Tremble would remain the same, but we would let Parkinson walk. As for the offensive line, all the normal starters are still there. Going to the defensive line, Kevin Flowers and Basley, the only 2 left ends. While at right end, you still have Johnny Smith, Stewart, Woodyard, and Hancock all still there. And the DTs, for the most part, outside of Michael Pierce retiring, all the same. Linebackers all would remain with the squad, even going to the cornerbacks, where again, the top 3 all still there, but they need to add some depth. Free safety Lamont Swain remains, and Daxton Hill. However, Brown was not re-signed at kicker, nor did our punter return. And when it came to open free agency, McVay played hardball, not signing a single player. So it was clear at this point that he wanted to rebuild this team through the draft, and he would have 2 first-round picks, 2 top 10, 2 second-round picks, 2 thirds, a 4th, a 5th, 3 6s, and 2 7s. So a bunch of options to further add to this team. And with the first pick in the draft for the 2nd year in a row, McVay would select right outside linebacker Anthony Rhodes out of Notre Dame. Then with the 9th selection, our 2nd top 10, we would go with strong safety Andrew Cooper out of Virginia Tech, leaving us with now 3 starting options at safety. To begin the 2nd round, we would bring in a new tight end in Pat Rogan out of Stanford, a position that never truly had that #1 guy. And once again, just a few selections later, 9th in the 2nd round, we would bring in another safety, Stan Jones, another Stanford player, now with possibly 4 safety options. In the 3rd round, we would see McVay add a receiver, finally going with someone over on the offensive side to help potentially fill out that spot, Jamal Patterson out of Fresno State. With the 11th pick in the 3rd round, we would add a cornerback in CJ Oakley out of Florida. That was a position group that only had the top 3 and didn't really have much depth past that. With our 4th round selection, we would add another outside linebacker in John Lashley out of Rhode Island. With our first of the day 3 selections, we would bring in a middle linebacker in Xavier Hackett. We had some pretty good depth at that spot, so it's not necessarily an addition we needed, but hopefully he ends up being good. Now with the first of our 6th round selections, we would bring in a right tackle out of Clemson in Richard Woods, providing some more depth. With the 11th pick in the 6th round, we would bring in another backup offensive lineman, Zach Singer, this time out of West Virginia. And with the last pick we had in the 6th round, the 21st, we'd bring in another safety, Dalvin Grimes, out of Bowling Green State. And with just 2 picks left, the second to last would be another cornerback, Oscar Clark, out of North Carolina. And with the final selection in the draft, we would end up picking up Rashawn Harris, another free safety, 66 overall, and has some developable traits here, leaning maybe more on a hybrid style of safety. In terms of all of the selections, definitely McVay hit on the top 4, including an 80 overall strong safety in Andrew Cooper, who is a hidden dev, meaning that Daxton Hill now might even be potentially tradable, or potentially even Lamont Swain, as Cooper does not provide much man coverage and would probably fit better at that free spot. And considering the other safety we brought in at free, Stan Jones, is only a 71 overall, though also hidden dev, definitely just looks to be much more of a developmental, and actually even probably more of a developmental strong safety. However, at the get-go, with the number 1 selection in the draft, he would select a 75 overall hidden dev outside linebacker who is an edge rusher. So we've brought in so many edge guys here, and it looks like he's wanting to go back to a 3-4. As for the tight end in Pat Rogan, he's just adding to a jumbled up tight end spot, as he's a 73 overall and doesn't quite separate himself to really anyone else we have on roster. As for the receiver in Jamal Patterson, definitely would be depth, but is a pretty polished short route runner and has some good release. He's a work in progress and might be able to slot in at a couple different spots. But as for the whole rest of the draft, it was really about bringing in backups, solidifying why he did not go after any free agents. And following the offseason, here's the transaction wire for the Rams. We would sign Caleb Goodson, one of our last kind of draftees, to the practice squad. We would release Greg Moran. We would sign Bryce Williams to the practice squad despite him showing so many good signs. We would release right outside linebacker Pat Shepard. We would release Leo Chenal, who was, again, so good for us. We would sign Rashawn Harris to the practice squad, release Matt Pemberton, release James Stevenson, both at middle linebacker. We would finally find a punter and kicker, Jack Fox and Greg Joseph, and I personally went through and adjusted all the roster to move guys where they best fit. But moving into the first official season after the firing of Marshall Faulk and really McVay deciding everything, Caleb Williams does remain our starting quarterback with Bo Harrell, the backup. At running back, we still have Cam Akers and Jeff Boley, and it's Evan Williams, the other running back that we had that did finally make that final roster spot. As for the receivers, the top 2 are still Palmer and Jarrett. We are without Nakua moving forward as Dante Ayers kind of steps into that spot. Luke Hill still here and Jamal Patterson. But we also have Tommy Tremble playing that 6th receiver because we just have 5 on roster. At tight end, Tommy Tremble is still the number 1 tight end with the draftee Pat Rogan as the 2 and Jamie Charles the 3. For the offensive line, David Williams continues to start at left tackle, Calvin Hobart at left guard, George McAllister at center with Steve Avila right guard, and Reed Dickinson at right tackle. The defense did end up switching to a 3-4 with Kevin Flowers and Larry Basley at left end. Right end is still Johnny Smith with a DT Nick Bell. We'll probably see some of Luke Peak switching on in there as well. Outside linebacker Anthony Rhodes, the rookie first overall selection, is getting the start. Middle linebacker is going to be Kenneth Murray Jr. and Ethan Graham, with Solomon being the primary backup. Right outside edge rusher is going to be Steven Stewart, finally getting a chance to start. Cornerbacks are going to be Peter Rice, Josh Conley, as Paulson Adebo drops to that third spot with draftees CJ Oakley and Oscar Clark, the 4 and 5. Safety-wise, Lamont Swain is getting the start still at free safety. Andrew Cooper, the rookie, who does have that hidden dev, could rival him. They're probably going to play a hot hand at that spot, with strong safety still remaining Daxton Hill. We saw we brought in Greg Joseph and Jack Fox. The returners this year, Evan Williams for both kick and punt. As for the specialist, Cam Akers remains the third down running back, but Jeff Boley takes over for power running back duties. Slot receiver is going to be Luke Hill, with Dante Ayers backing up and Jamal Patterson the third option. Left end is going to be Johnny Smith, right end Kevin Flowers, DT Nick Bell. So we're not really seeing much of the rookie outside linebackers getting much of a chance to start, but they are slotting in Larry Basley as a rush DT. As for the sub backer, still going to be Murray and Graham, as Andrew Cooper is going to take over that third option instead of Solomon. Slot corner now is Paulson Adebo, with, again, Andrew Cooper as an option and Kenya Smith, one of the backup safeties. And once again, we would face a division rival to open up the season. The Cardinals, a team we have struggled against, and that does not quite appear to be changing. As we're down 21-3 at half, we would finally find some scores and start building back up in the fourth quarter to take a late lead, but give it up as time would run out. Once again, a disappointing loss for this team to open up their season. And through the first half of the season, the team would still struggle to find a win, including a 42-28 loss to division rival Seahawks. So at this point, they're really becoming known as the cursed franchise. But hearing that would spark something in this team, as they would finally start rattling off some wins, including a 49-7 win over the Detroit Lions, giving them their best season in years. Unfortunately, though, it was not good enough to make the playoffs. They needed to win at least one more game, as the Philadelphia Eagles would get that final spot in the playoffs, 9-8, compared to our Rams 8-9. And during this season, offense would be ranked 13th, while defense was actually 6th. So once again, defense really seems to be the main good part of this team, though clearly the offense stepped up, and Caleb Harris had himself a pretty good season. Over 4,000 yards, 33 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 70% completion. And he is a superstar dev quarterback. So we did not end up getting that X factor. He was not generational, but he's up to an 89 with all the morale and coaching boost. He potentially could have been a great quarterback for Marshall Faulk, but just the whole team just didn't come around him, and he ran out of time. And in what might be Cam Akers' last year as the starter, just under 1,000 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 fumble. Boley on even less than half the amount of carries, had 10 touchdowns, 4.2 yards an average, the same as Akers, so he very well could be taking over that spot next season. As for receiving, Luke Hill, the surprise big receiver here for us. He was one of our, again, last drafted players. Over 1,000 yards, nearly 1,100 yards, 16 touchdowns. Tommy Tremble, 825 yards, 7 touchdowns. Ed Jarrett, one of his better receiving yard seasons, 807, 4 touchdowns. Palmer definitely starting to fall down, and receiver is a group I expect this team to address pretty quickly. As for the defense, it's 2 years in a row where Ethan Graham leads the team in tackles, and I feel like that's the same amount of tackles he had last year. I know Kenneth Murray had 114 as well, so both of them seem to be doing really well in that tandem. Tackles for a loss, we took a little bit of a step back from last year. Nick Bell still double digit, Kenneth Murray Jr. also in that double digit, as Basley did have a better year this year as an interior defensive pass rusher. Though he was not the leading sack artist, it's actually split between Nick Bell and Johnny Smith, both with 7.5. Flowers had 6.5, which was 2 more than last year. Solomon 2.5, so he's at least still getting some play time. An interception leader was Josh Conley, finally getting that start on the outside, no longer just the slot corner. Ethan Graham would have 2, as well as Daxton Hill, Peter Rice with 1, and Paulson Adebo with 1, as well as Lamont Swain. The second season of this story would finish with a 24-17 Super Bowl victory for the Las Vegas Raiders, 4th of their history, with Walt Sherrills, the quarterback of the Raiders, winning MVP, though Jalen Hurts was the NFL MVP, as Kyle Shanahan was the Coach of the Year, Jonathan Taylor, Best Offensive Player, Micah Parsons for the 2nd year in a row, Best Defensive Player, Brian Hutchins, Offensive Rookie of the Year, and Jose Richmond, Defensive Player of the Year. And after the success of this previous season, McVay would double down on not making any free agent signings. So once again, the team would have to rely on draftees, and it wouldn't be as stacked of a draft for us this year, as we would have the 14th selection in the first round, a 2nd, a 3rd, 4th, 2 5ths, a 6th, and a 7th. So we do have 1 extra pick in there, but they're going to have to make these count because we only have 3 top 100 selections. And in the draft, with that 14th pick overall, we would be bringing in a receiver, Mateo Alonso, out of South Carolina. Figured this team would go after the receiver spot. It was probably their weakest group. In the 2nd round, we would end up bringing in a new running back in Deontay Jeffrey out of Notre Dame. Again, Akers was getting on the older side, and we might not have even signed him. It might just be Boley left. Now in the 3rd round, where do we go? Another receiver in Zach Pointer out of Ohio State. Jumping to the 4th round, we will be bringing in a quarterback in Nick Thorpe out of East Carolina. That would have just been the last year for Bo Harold, so it looks like we've brought in ourselves a new backup quarterback. Now with our first of 2 5th round selections, we will be bringing in another cornerback in Deontay Trent out of Ohio State. With the 2nd selection just a few picks later, we would bring in another running back, Justin Keys, out of Lafayette. With just 2 selections remaining, here in the 6th round, we would bring in a middle linebacker, James Colin, out of UTSA. And our final selection here in the 7th round would be another corner in Javonte Roth out of Temple. And this would be a draft that wouldn't bring in as high of overalls, though throughout the draft, the overalls stayed pretty solid. Mateo Alonso, the 1st round receiver out of South Carolina, 6'2", 225, 22 years old, just a normal dev. But he has some polished release and short route running with some pretty good catch in traffic and spec catch. Catching, he might drop a few here and there, but honestly, it reminds me a whole lot of Ed Jarrett when we drafted him. As for the running back, Deontay Jeffrey, he's a 70 overall normal dev, and he's gonna be breaking tackles, 99. But overall, he's a 70. So he's not necessarily gonna be in that starting spot, but could definitely see some rotation, just not in the 3rd down back role. The other receiver we went with, Zach Pointer, is the same overall, also normal dev, though he has the potential to be a more well-rounded receiver, as he has both deep and short route running. Medium, awful, don't go there. Release about the same, hands close to about the same. He also has some pretty good catch after the run ability as well. As for the new backup quarterback in Nick Thorpe, he's a normal dev, and he has some short accuracy, a little bit of some medium. Throw power not too bad for a backup, but he's got a whole lot of speed. 95 speed and 88 acceleration. He's not going to get on the field that often, but maybe he might need some packages designed for him, but that's not up to us. And moving into the third season, here is the roster. Caleb Harris, with the development and the coaching boost, is up to an 89, with Thorpe being the backup. Running back Cam Akers does stick around, but Boley is also the same overall. So Cam Akers may start to be phased out of this offense. We have a new backup in Deontay Jeffrey, and Justin Keys, as the Williams are both gone. At receiver, we still have Joshua Palmer and Ed Jarrett, the top two. Then we have Luke Hill, the rookie, and Mateo Alonso, and Zach Pointer, all at a 74 overall. And Hill is just coming off a really good season. Jamal Patterson rounds out the group, as we do finally have 6 receivers. At tight end, Pat Rogan takes over the starting spot there, with us having Caleb Goodson back this year as the number 2 tight end. He was on the practice squad previously. And we have Aaron Butler, the third tight end, a very low 60 overall. As for the offensive line, everyone stays the same, just seeing a little bit more development, as Dickinson really I don't think is actually developing much at all. Defensive line, Kevin Flowers is up to an 81, Basley 77. Johnny Smith still at that 83, not seeing much in terms of him improving. Nick Bell an 82. As we also no longer have Luke Peak on this squad. He had a great rookie season and just fell off. Sheldon Raheem takes over for him. Calvin Grant now the number 3. Anthony Rhodes, the rookie from last year, didn't see much from him. He's still starting outside backer. We still have our top 3 interior backers. And Steven Stewart still starting at outside backer, with still, again, our top 3 corners. But Peter Rice and Conley definitely rising up, closing in at that 90 overall. Free safety Lamont Swain still staying in that starting spot, despite them drafting Andrew Cooper previously, and Daxton Hill still at strong safety, with now a new kicker, once again Kevin Nails, and a new punter in Dom Huff. At slot receiver this year, Mateo Alonso will be getting the start, with Luke Hill that second option, as well as Zach Pointer, both of them the same overall. And the Rams would open up the season with a big divisional win, 42-31 over rival Seahawks. Though that would not be a sign of how good the first half of this season would be. By our Week 8 bye, we would have only won one other game over the Buccaneers, 28-10, and that included a loss to the 49ers, 27-14. We had a close game here against the Saints. Panthers, another 1 score. Jets, 1 score. And not so much a 1 score against the Eagles. So the season definitely could have been flipped if we could have just scored one more time in a couple of these games. And by the time Week 15 would come, there is still no decisive team in our division, as the Seahawks are 6-7. 49ers and ourselves both 5-8. So really, anything could happen with limited games left. But the Rams would drop their next game, once again a single score game, 17-10 against the Buffalo Bills, leaving us 2 games behind the Seahawks with 3 remaining. And the following loss would secure our spot on the couch for the playoffs, as we would lose another 1 score game, 27-21 to the Atlanta Falcons, putting us 3 games behind the Seahawks and out of the playoffs once again. And our season would end going 6-11, the same record as the 49ers, and remained 3 games behind the Seattle Seahawks. We regressed offensively down to the 27th ranked. Defensively, we regressed as well, down to the 18th. Offensively, Caleb Harris did not have as good of a season, just 27 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 68% completion for less than 3,500 yards. Rushing-wise, Cam Akers did go over 1,000. I feel like the first time in this series, though. 5 touchdowns to 4 fumbles. Boley did not carry the ball as often, 3.7 yards a carry, did have 5 touchdowns. As for receiving, Joshua Palmer had a resurrection year almost, just under 900 yards, 9 touchdowns. The rookie in Mateo Alonso, a little bit over 850, 7 touchdowns. Ed Jarrett back to what he was kind of doing before we were fired. Pat Rogan in his first year starting at tight end, a little bit over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, nothing spectacular. As for the defense, Kenneth Murray Jr. retakes his tackling crown. 107, Ethan Graham still gets over 100 with 101. Tackles for a loss, it was Kevin Flowers that led us, the only double-digit tackle for a loss guy. Basley did have 9, still playing that interior pass rusher. Johnny Smith had 8. Graham had 7, as well as Nick Bell. As for the edge rushers, Johnny Smith, the one and only double-digit sack guy here. Again, much more than we've had any other season with 12. Nick Bell was second with 7. Flowers 6. Basley 5.5. Probably one of his better seasons. Anthony Rhodes did have 4, but overall just nothing really pulling this team forward. Josh Conley did have 3 interceptions, 2 for Kenneth Murray Jr., 1 for Graham, Daxton Hill, Rice, and Cooper. And season 3 would end with once again another Chiefs Super Bowl, 35-32. It was a close one between them and the Cowboys. Patrick Mahomes, yet again Super Bowl MVP, as well as the NFL MVP. Mike McCarthy does win Coach of the Year once again, this time actually taking his team to the Super Bowl. Bijan Robinson, Offensive Player of the Year with Micah Parsons, I want to say 3rd year in a row, Defensive Player of the Year. Sean Campbell, Offensive Rookie, and Deontay Nails, Defensive Rookie. And with just the normal set of picks, we would have at least 3 possible players who could contribute after we would go with an outside linebacker and a quarterback in the top 2 rounds. Julius Knox is a 77 normal dev. We have not hit on a hidden dev in the last couple drafts, though he's coming in with a pretty good amount of power moves and would probably take over for Stevens. As for the quarterback in Marlon Phillips, he's a 76 overall, but a normal dev with some solid accuracies across the board, has a little bit of mobility, but it's a pick that I quite don't understand. Past them, you had a 64 free safety, a 64 outside linebacker, a 70 corner who maybe would be able to contribute a little bit with the coaching boost up to a 72. He has some press ability, he's a man-style guy, but overall he's still sitting behind some pretty good corners. To finish out the group, we did draft Oscar Rutherford, a right end, and another tight end, a 63 overall in Marquise Gallery. Now going into season 4, which will be our second to last of this story. Caleb Harris is a 91, receiving some boost. Marlon Phillips will be the backup, and we have Nick Thorpe, so 3 pretty solid quarterbacks. It's a good quarterback room. Jeff Boley officially takes over as running back 1 as Akers has started to regress down to a 77. As for the receivers, Ed Jarrett, the new number 1, as Palmer, again, has also started to regress. Alonso is definitely the solid 3rd guy here. With Luke Hill, he really hasn't progressed much. Zach Pointer still sitting the same overall as Hill, and Jamal Patterson also hasn't really progressed much either. At tight end, Pat Rogan still the number 1, with Caleb Goodson number 2, and now the rookie in Marquise Gallery number 3. Offensive line still the same with Williams at left tackle, Holbert at left guard, McAllister at center. Avila still getting the start at right guard, though Moreland right on his tail. Right tackle, still Reed Dickinson. As for the defense, Kevin Flowers, an 83, Basley, 79, so they really haven't progressed much throughout our time here today. Right end, Johnny Smith up to an 85, Nick Bell, 84, with Raheem Sheldon, 76, and then we had to sign Marvin Wilson as a free agent after the draft to fill out this DT role. As for left outside linebacker, the rookie Julius Knox getting the start here as we moved over Anthony Rhodes to the right-hand side. Middle linebacker still Kenneth Murray Jr. and Ethan Graham. Solomon has moved on as James Cullen takes over as that next option. And speaking of moving on, Conley and Rice, the only 2 remaining corners from early on, as we did not re-sign Paulson Adebo. So Deontay Trent or potentially even CJ Oakley gonna have to step in as that next corner. At free safety, Andrew Cooper does finally get the start. We have moved on once again from one of our guys in Swain. Strong safety still Daxton Hill, kicker Greg Joseph back this year, and Johnny Hecker the new punter. As for third down running back, Akers not even being listed there as Justin Keys takes over, as Akers probably still could play a little bit there, but they're giving it to the young guy. And it will be CJ Oakley getting the start at the slot corner role. There's also Stan Jones, who could fill in if need be. And for the most part, season 4 would start off pretty well with a positive record 4-3, though the 49ers are on top 5-2, Cardinals 4-2, but this is the best start this team has had yet. And in week 11 against the 49ers, after rattling off 4 straight wins, this team would face one of its biggest games yet to take the first spot here in the division and hopefully continue on winning for a spot in the playoffs. We face a whole lot of our division foes late on, Seahawks, 49ers, and Seahawks, 3 of the last 4 games. But this one would put us in first. And at home, we could have a chance to get the big win, but it's the 49ers that strike first, but we level it before the end of the first quarter. Going through the second, 49ers retake the lead, and we do not quite answer, but get the ball back and take the lead, 14-17 at halftime. Getting through the third quarter. Will either of these teams start to pull away as we're still tied, but grab a touchdown before the end of the fourth? As we go to slow things down here to see how the rest of this game would roll. The 49ers needing to level this game up with 8 minutes left and now under 7. A sack would come in from Nick Bell, making it a 2nd and long. Now 3rd and long. George Kittle would convert, keeping their hopes up. They would pick up a penalty on the following play and then regain those yards. Now with a 3rd and short, it would be a penalty on Murray, giving them a free set of downs and an injury to one of their receivers. But with that 1st and goal, they have a chance to level this game up, and they would, with Ezekiel Jones tying this one up 24-24 with about 5 minutes left. We would need this offense to have a slow and methodical drive, get down the field, but it's a 3rd and 10, of which it's knocked away by Fred Warner. Forces the punt back to the 49ers, who are not actually tied. They either missed the extra point or did not convert a 2-pointer and have a 4th and 13 following the Kevin Flowers sack. So we get the ball back, 4 minutes, needing to milk this clock. Starting with a 5-yard penalty definitely does not help them out. Jeff Boley will pick up 3, another 4, leaving them 3rd and long, and a penalty on David Williams back to, well, way back, and has to punt. 49ers start with plus territory and down inside the 15. A chance to take a lead here with under 2 minutes left. The 49ers with a 3rd and goal get the touchdown. 1:35 for this team to get down the field and find a win. We have not had a chance for a play into the playoffs yet. The team came up a game short 2 seasons ago, and that pass should have been caught. Harris only 10 of 21 on the day, but he has 3 touchdowns. So when he's making the completions, they're big catches. As he's going deep, look for the back shoulder, but knocked away. We'll leave the Rams here with 3rd and 10. 2 spread either side. Harris from the pocket, rolling backwards, now to the bottom, going up top and out of bounds. You got to go for the first there. But I guess we'll go for it on 4th, as it is still 4th and game. Back at the 25. We are down 7. As we throw deep across the middle, it's caught! Jarrett! Down around midfield. Provides the spark this offense needed. Again, we're not completing many passes, but when we do, they are big ones. As it's a dump off going to Palmer across the middle. Gain of 5, first timeout falls. We have 2 remaining in 46 seconds. To level this one up, try to head into OT. As he'll roll towards the top, throw it out late. Downfield to an open Palmer, down to the 5. going again back to what we've seen. Not big completions unless they're big plays. As it's 1st and goal, we send the running back out of the backfield to make it an empty set. Around 30 seconds left. It's a throw to Ed Jarrett, but he cannot hold on. Probably wasn't getting into the end zone either way there, so probably good thing it was dropped as we have 1 timeout remaining. Back again towards the end zone. It is Rogan, short of the goal line. As we conserve that timeout, 3rd and goal, still spreading wide. It will be Harris across the middle, finding Palmer, who holds on to it. Despite the big hit, extra point would tie this game up. But devastation would strike as the 49ers would have a kick return, officially ending the game and giving them the win and 1st place in the division. And with 3 games left, we would struggle to recover as the 49ers would take not only 1st in our division, 1st in the NFC, as we are struggling to hold on to that 7th seed. 3 games left. 3 games back behind the 49ers with a game to play against them and 2 against the Seahawks. We would rally with a win, 28-14 over the Colts, but the 49ers also won, so no way we could win the division, but we can still make the playoffs. And we would rattle off 2 more wins, 27-13 over the 49ers and 27-6 over the Seahawks, solidifying us in the playoffs for the first time this series. Now, it wouldn't be a flashy seeding, 5th, but that is way better than anything we've had prior to, as we would be meeting up against the 4th seed Green Bay Packers. And our playoff road begins in Lambeau, as it would be a back and forth first quarter where both teams would score a touchdown, 7-7 going into the second. Bit of some defensive plays, we would finally grab a lead 14-7 and widen that 17-7 going into halftime. We just need to keep that kind of play up, as the 3rd quarter would end 17-7, though one team was marching down looking for a score, as it would be the Packers to start the 4th quarter. Defense would stand tall though, force the field goal, make it a touchdown game. As the offense would retake the field, it would be a drop by Mateo Alonso, but then 25 yards to Joshua Palmer up close to midfield here. I would not mind us running some clock, but it seems like we're focused on passing the ball as Ed Jarrett would pick up 16 on 3rd down inside the red zone now with 10 more yards to Joshua Palmer. Looking to make this a 2-score game late, and it's actually 2nd and inches just outside the red zone. An empty set, we dump this one off and will be caught by Rogan, the tight end. And that'll leave us down at the 16 as we send out the running back once again. An empty set here. We got 3 down the bottom, 2 up top. A throw slant caught. That's going to be one of the younger receivers, Mateo Alonso. I want to say that was the 1st pick in the, 2nd draft that we watched here? As it's 2nd and 2, handoff down the middle goes Boley down to the 2. Packers need to get the stop here as we're about at the 3.5-minute mark. We got a bunch up top. Hand this one off, Boley down the middle, powering but stuffed at the goal line. He's already had 2 touchdowns today, 131 yards, looking for his hat trick. On 2nd and goal, we got 2 spread up top, but we go down the middle. Boley dives in for the 3rd touchdown on the day, giving us a 2-score lead in the wild card. The defense would just have to come through for 3 more minutes as Peter Rice would get the knockaway, throwaway by Brock Purdy, and just a gain of 6, leaving 4th and game, in which they convert with a gain of 13 up to the 40. Then a sack by Nick Bell, loss of 8. They gain 5 more yards to Jaden Reed. 2nd and long, we saw that, leaving 3rd and long. A throwaway Brock Purdy, 4th and long, knocked away by Ethan Graham. And that should and does seal our win in our first playoff game, wild card victory over the Packers. The next round would send us back home in the divisional round at SoFi to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As it would be a solid drive, though only ending in a field goal for both teams to start the game. 3-3 at the beginning of the second quarter. But we would march down the field again, just a field goal, but finally scoring our touchdown, giving up another touchdown right before half, leaving it 13-10. In close game it remains. As the third quarter begins, just a 3-point lead, we would find a 10-point lead as the end of the third would hit and the beginning of the fourth quarter. The Buccaneers down 2 scores here. Need to drive down the field, find at least a touchdown, make it an easier rest of the fourth quarter for them. 2nd and 12, it's a throwaway. 3rd and long, or a penalty, actually make it even longer. 3rd and 17, they pick up 28 to Brandon Douglas. As we're under 6.5 minutes left to play, down toward the goal line, a throwaway, 2nd and goal, touchdown for Trent Stallworth. Makes this a field goal gain. But a chance remains still for us as Cam Akers gets a gain of 6 to run out some clock as we then throw it to Cam Akers the following play. Key's going to pick up 4 yards, getting 3 running backs involved here. 3rd and 4, we pick up 4, leaving 4th and 1. We're going to be aggressive here. With the I formation, it's Boley right down the middle, picking up the first down, keeping this drive moving. We'll have a chance to run out the clock. Still up 3 points. We could also widen our lead. It's 2017 as the clock rolls under 2:45 left. Both teams have all 3 timeouts as we motion out the running back late. Play clock is about empty and we do not get the snap off. So that'll back us up 5 yards, leaving 1st and 15 with a split backfield here for Harris. He's got a receiver down the bottom. It's actually going to be read option for the big, gigantic, honestly, quarterback. And he'll pick up the lost yardage due to the penalty as we hit the 2-minute warning. Just 2 minutes away from headed to the NFC Conference Championship. Boley will just pick up 2. First timeout called by the Buccaneers leaves 3rd and 8. It's a tight shotgun look here. Will be a throw from Harris, who rolls towards the top, but it's gonna get dropped for a massive sack. Second timeout called will leave 1 for this Buccaneers offense to try to find the leveler. Field goals all their need for the tie. Touchdown would put them in front. And it's Ricard who leads them out there. A possible quarterback we could have gone with, but instead we went with Bo Harrell. Clearly, one of their careers has turned out a whole lot better than the other. As it's a short pass gain of 4 to start the drive, Graham gets the tackle. I'm assuming they're probably going to be pretty conservative with that timeout. Wait until they have to use it. As they throw up top, it's tipped away by Conley. That could have been a game-sealing pick. Instead, he makes the safer play, knocking it away. 3rd and 6, got a bunch down to the bottom, 2 up top. It's an empty look for Richard, who gets picked that play. It is Conley, and this one's headed for 6. Pick 6 to send this team to the NFC Conference Championship. And it would be against a familiar foe in the San Francisco 49ers. As we would start this game off with a great offensive drive, getting 7 points. Defense holds, just giving up 3 as we take a 7-3 lead into the second quarter. A little bit of a defensive game. We force the turnover, get another score off of it, but give up a score as we hit halftime 14-10. Getting through the third quarter. It's been the third quarter that's really separated us and the fourth quarter in these games. And we're going to need the fourth quarter to come up big as it is 14-13. We are out on offense with a 3rd and 15 after Jeff Boley picks up 5. And it'll be a penalty by Dre Greenlaw, make it 3rd and 10. But a sack from Vita Vea We're way backed up here. Do we go for the field goal? No. We punt it away. It remains a 1-point game as we get a tackle for a loss of 3. Play 1, though they pick up 4. Leaving 3rd and 10. Math doesn't line up, but defense holds. Kittle just picks up 3, and we'll get the ball back. Need consistent offensive drive here as we start with 2 incomplete passes, but pick up 26 to Ed Jarrett into plus territory. We just need to kill some clock and add a touchdown to the board to help seal this one as we hand it off down the middle. Boley right through the middle of this defense with the first down to the 33. 49ers have clogged up most of the running lanes today, but we break through there. Boley back down the middle, bouncing off of 1's going to pick up a gain of 7. That was his 15th carry for 64 yards. Already has a touchdown today. As it's 2nd and 3. Gonna be a throw across the middle, finding the target, Rogan, the tight end. And we are letting this clock run a little bit here. With an I form, making a check is Harris. We got 1 receiver spread either side. Will be a drop back pass. Rolling sack coming in from the blind side is Young. Though that is not the same Young we started this series with. 2nd and 17, 2 receivers up top. Will be a throw up top going to Jarrett with a little bit of space. Makes it a much more manageable 3rd down. 3rd and 6. Jarrett's had 4 catches, 65 yards today. As it will be a tight single back set here. Harris under center. We'll snap the ball. Hand it off Boley down the middle. Tried to fight through Hufanga, but it's a good tackle, leaving 4th and 4. As the 2-minute warning will hit prior to the field goal attempt to make it a 4-point ball game. Though that's still going to require some good play from the defense. But the kick is good. It is a 4-point lead for our Rams late on here in the NFC Conference Championship. And this game has really been all defense up to this point. 17-13. Defense just needs to come through one more time. As they go Kittle up top, it's a good stiff arm, but not going to get far. As there's a tackle from Rice and Graham. For the most part, the base of this defense has stuck around throughout all the different guys brought in. Shifting of the defense as a sack comes in. It's Johnny Smith. Making it 3rd and 12. A big down here for the 49ers. Under a minute and a half left. As they launch it deep, it's Ayuk. Past midfield with the first down. Ball popped out at the end, but they rule it a catch. 1st and 10. Field goal range not far from here. They get the ball off just in time, but it's slightly inaccurate as Brian Hutchins, injured on the play, does not surprisingly call one of their timeouts, so they still have 2. Will be a throw, rolling pass rush, evaded, and almost picked, but it's dropped by Cooper. Potentially if that was Swain, who knows if that one would have been dropped. But it's 3rd and 10 now. We got 3 down the bottom, 1 up top. They nailed it on the last 3rd down, tipped away by Conley, sealed the last game, gives us a chance here. For 4th and gain. They need 10 yards. It will be a throw from the pocket. Pass rush working back there, and that should be it. A sack comes in for Rhodes, the first draftee after we were fired. Gets the big play on Richards. Though I do have to say Johnny Smith was back there, but both edge rushers drafted by the new McVay make the play as Boley picking up the first down. 2nd timeout called by the 49ers. They have 1 remaining. And we have them use it there with 1:02 left. All we need is 1 more kneel by Harris as we are on to the Super Bowl. It took longer than expected, a couple changes of head coaches, but our Rams are finally headed back to the big game. And how sweet it would be to host the Lombardi in the home of our rivals that we just knocked out of the playoffs. The first quarter would begin pretty defensively and would end defensively with no one scoring. In the second quarter, the Buffalo Bills would finally take a lead. 7-0, we would get a field goal, hold them off, but still end up giving up the score before half, leaving us 10-3. As we continue on through the third quarter, we need a touchdown. We have not gotten one yet, and that will remain as the fourth quarter begins. It is 10-3, but we're in plus territory. With a 3rd and 3, we pick up 4 with Caleb Harris. Need to find a touchdown on this drive. We pick up 4 more with Harris. 3rd and 6, 9 yards go to Ed Jarrett. But a penalty would back us up. 1st and 15, we get 11 to Palmer. Give us a first down and we are jumping in, and we're pretty close to it. Come on, one more play, first down. Needing to tie this game up here. We're at 5:50 and counting in the fourth quarter. It's an I form. Boley down the middle. It's going to be a short gain. He's been stacked up pretty well today. Oh, he's broken a few times. 20 carries, 84 yards. No touchdowns, though, for him. 2nd and goal will be a throw from Harris. Pass rush working back there and does hit there just at the point of the throw. We had our running back open for a drop-off, but just not enough time. Guard got beat as it's 3rd and goal. Need a touchdown. Harris throws late and misses Ed Jarrett. But we need it here. Just over 5 minutes here left in the game. Needing to find a touchdown. Harris rolling, evades one rusher and runs it in on the last ounce of gas he had in the tank. Defense would just need to get a stop, give us an opportunity to find the Super Bowl winner. But it's 20 yards to start off Dalton Kincaid. 1 yard goes to Connor Bell. 5 more yards, 3rd and short, and they pick up 27. Now it's the Bills with a chance to find their Super Bowl winner. It's Josh Allen versus Josh Allen 2.0 as they go Gabe Davis with all the room on the RPO. Down inside the 4. Defense has to come up clutch here. It's a tight single back set for Josh Allen. As they'll go with a stretch down to the bottom, it opens up. Murray slows him down and we clean it up. Gain of nothing as Donnie Harris shaken up on the play. And as it was outside the 2-minute warning, it does not use up a timeout. 2nd and goal now as they spread too wide either side. Allen looking to roll down to the bottom, but the big boy gets the sack. That is Sheldon. One of our last, again, drafted players makes a big play here in the Super Bowl. But the work is not over yet. 3rd and goal. Hold them to a field goal. It's an I set. They hand it off down the middle. Bouncing, breaking one, but not going to get by the next level. And it will be a field goal here for the Bills. It does put them up, but gives us a chance to find our winner. Can 2.0 lead the drive to get the win over the original? As we're having to move out here, avoid the rush, Harris scrambles, picking up the first down. We have 2 timeouts though. We do not have all of them. We need at least a field goal to tie. Touchdown would win it. As it's a spread look, Harris throws to avoid the pass rush, just picking up 4 to Cam Akers. Back to the line quickly here, saving those timeouts. We got 2 up top, 1 down to the bottom. Harris from shotgun, quick throw across the middle. Gonna be a short catch for Boley as we call that 2nd timeout. 1 remaining. 3rd and 4, it's a tight set under center. It will be a throw. Harris up top goes to Rogan, who beats the defender. He's down inside the 35 before getting dragged down. Harris only completing 50% of his throws, but if he can find the winner, that is key. Pass rush getting in. He takes the sack back at the 39. We're under 30 seconds left. Still have a timeout. We're in field goal range as Harris throws the interception. That will seal it for us here. The Rams put together a great season, but we come up short. And how fitting is that it's off a bad throw. The reason that we were fired was because of all these bad throws. And that throw costs us a Super Bowl as the Buffalo Bills would win it in a close defensive battle, and it is the defense that has the deciding factor. And following that game, Cam Akers would retire. After a 10-year career, he was our offense for so many years, and really the only one we truly could rely on to make consistent plays. In the following draft, we would add yet again another safety, Marquez Crowley, this time finally hitting on a hidden dev. Where he plays, who knows? But outside of him, you really just have some depth guys in Devontae Thompson at tight end, a 72, and Kyle Austin, a running back at 70. And heading into the final year, Caleb Harris would move up to a 94 overall. Jeff Boley up to an 84, with Deontay Jeffrey being the primary backup. Justin Keys was involved last year as well, and we drafted obviously Kyle Austin. At receiver, Ed Jarrett still the number 1, but Mateo Alonso becomes the number 2. As Zach Pointer moves up to 3, Jamal Patterson finally going to see some bit of an increased role, but Paul Wilkerson finishes off the receiver group as we only carry 5 into the season. Pat Rogan, who did set us up for a potential game winner there in the Super Bowl, is still our number 1 tight end, though only a 76 overall. Devontae Thompson, the rookie, 73, is going to provide us at least a solid 1-2. David Williams remains the starter at left tackle, Holbert at left guard, McAllister at center, Avila at right guard, and Dickinson at right tackle. Over at left end, Kevin Flowers still only an 84, but no longer is Larry Basley here. At right end, Johnny Smith is up to an 86, Nick Bell an 85, as pretty much all of the other defensive tackles we had brought in are gone. At linebacker, Julius Knox up to an 80, and Ethan Graham overtakes Kenneth Murray Jr. as the lead linebacker after some regression hits, but still the primary 1-2 still there. Anthony Rhodes up to an 85, Conley up to a 92, and Peter Rice at a 90. Oakley and Trent still fighting back and forth for that next guy off the bench. At free safety, we do have Andrew Cooper up to an 88, and Stan Jones gets the start as we no longer have Hill. He is a 76. Gabriel McCoy becomes the new kicker, and Alex Johnson the new punter. And at the halfway point of the season, no Super Bowl hangover, as we would rattle off 6 wins in that first half of the year. Only 1 loss, but that's a first half. We have to see that play consistently throughout. And the once disappointing franchise would not disappoint, as we would make it back to the playoffs, though it wasn't as clean of a second half of the season, as the loss here to the Cardinals would also show that they won the division over us. But after losing in the Super Bowl, we are back. But we start in the wild card once again. And it would be on the road as we begin our second playoff road. As the first quarter would get through, it's a close battle, but the Cowboys would take a lead. Through the second quarter, they would widen it 10-0 just before half. We would get a touchdown as we would take the lead in the third. As the fourth quarter would begin, no one scoring. We would hold a 4-point lead. Though driving towards the end, defense gets the stop, and we get a win in the wild card, knocking off the Dallas Cowboys. In the divisional round, we would head back home to face the Lions. In the first quarter, very similar to last week, no one scores. We would find a field goal in the second, but would give up a touchdown. And before half, no one would score. Heading into the third quarter, score kind of holds for a while, but we start to build some momentum, taking a multi-score lead and finishing off the Lions. In the divisional round, we pick up another defensive win. And that would give us the chance to be back-to-back NFC champions, as long as we get through the Falcons. As the first quarter would finish with a touchdown by us, so the Falcons would answer in the second quarter. They would also tack on an extra one, giving them a touchdown lead through half. We would get a field goal, but give up another touchdown. And as the fourth quarter hits, it's a one-score game that needs a 2-point conversion. Though it's the Falcons who have a chance to extend their lead as they pick up 14 points. Bijan Robinson loses 3, meaning 2nd and 13. A throwaway, 3rd and long. Defense holds. They get the punt, and we need a touchdown drive. As we start deep here, Caleb Harris with 4, Boley with a 1st down. Need a touchdown, need a 2-point conversion. That is just a tie. But a sack on 3rd down leaves 4th and long. And it will have to be a punt. And it's not a good one. They start now in plus territory. They were not far. A field goal would be our downfall. And the Falcons are driving here. Knocked away Johnny Smith. Throw away, but the field goal hits, making it a 2-score game with under 3.5 minutes. As we start with a sack, 2nd and 15, we get 12 to Jarrett. 3rd and 2, a throwaway. 4th and game, we convert, keeping things alive for now. But we're not seeing big chunk plays. 2-minute warning hits there as we pick up the 1st down to Rogan. 12 more yards, back to Rogan. A sack by Simpson. We're under 1.5 minutes here. We go back to Rogan for 12. 3rd and 7, we get the 1st down. With 3 timeouts remain, we need a touchdown on this play. We need the turnover, or we need an accurate pass to Jarrett. Should have been it. But we need that touchdown. We need the onside. Turnover really wouldn't help us because that would mean giving them back the ball. But we need a touchdown here as it's tossed up and intercepted. We lost the Super Bowl off of an interception as we lose the NFC Conference Championship off an interception. It was obviously not a clean throw, but at that point you gotta go with it. And that's what Harris did. But it inevitably ends this series just as it kind of started, with bad throws. And there we conclude what has been a cursed Rams franchise. We made it to the Super Bowl, had a chance to win it, interception. Had the chance to get back to it, needed a lot at the end. Obviously, even if we scored that touchdown, so much was stacked against us at the end of that NFC Conference Championship. But we failed to win a Super Bowl in this Rams franchise, but we could at least wrap up taking a look at some of the guys who were a part of our team. Caleb Harris finishes a 98 overall, receiving some boosts, obviously, but his ratings are really good. 99 throw power with all the mobility he had. Accuracies were fantastic. We just didn't get a chance to really see any good accuracy. Boley was a running back we drafted expecting him to eventually take over for Cam Akers, and he did. He finishes up being an 85 overall, never seeing that development actually increase at all, but his ratings still, again, pretty solid. Ed Jarrett, the only remaining receiver from our original bunch, we end with him at an 86 normal dev. Some pretty solid short release, good spec catch. The hands are good. He just never really developed the deep and medium route running. At tight end, none of the guys we brought in are still there, but the entire offensive line still intact, with David Williams at an 86, Calvin Hobart 87, George McAllister an 82, Steve Avila 81, and surprisingly, Reed Dickinson stuck around this whole time at an 83. Defensive line, we did draft Kevin Flowers right before getting fired. He finishes at an 85, receiving 1 boost, a normal dev. Never really developed the block shedding, has some power moves. All around, he was a pretty good 3-4 style of defensive lineman. Johnny Smith, surprisingly, he was the best of the defensive linemen that we ended up drafting, up at an 87 star dev, 96 finesse moves. Block shedding really didn't get developed much after we were fired. And surprisingly, Nick Bell stuck around an 85 overall. At first, I liked Luke Peak more, but he kind of dropped off after that rookie year. Bell slowly increased his play as a true DT. Julius Knox was a draftee, so none of the outside linebackers we had drafted stuck around. Ethan Graham, again, finished higher than Murray, but due to regression. But both of those guys were solid throughout. Already talked about the outside guys. Conley and Rice finish 94, 91 really solid players. If only we were able to win a Super Bowl with a Debo. Safety-wise, all the guys we brought in, gone. Kickers, gone. So, for the most part, I would say the core of this team that we had built stuck around until the very end. Unfortunately, it's not a fantastic end. If you guys missed the last couple episodes, we've been doing testing. And we really found out that, true to the name of this video, this franchise was cursed. We could not complete passes, and we did testing with quarterbacks who were lower rated, higher rated, individual ratings lower, same, or even better, and all of them passed better than what we've been able to do in this series. So I hope you guys enjoyed the wrap up to the Rams franchise, as we will be starting a new traditional franchise on Monday. I'm still toying between a couple different teams, of which I think would be good for us to start with. You can let me know what teams you would like to see in the comment section down below. But I do feel like it's a very fitting end here for this series. You finally get to the Super Bowl, you throw the pick to lose it, you try to fight back to it, and in the NFC Conference Championship, it's another pick. The curse goes from the beginning all the way to the end, as we do end it here. Make sure you stick around for the start of that new franchise. Hit the bell icon on the bottom right, or scroll down, hit the subscription button, and tap that bell icon so you're notified of when these videos go live. Traditional Madden franchises every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, with the States Only Challenge every Wednesday and Saturday as we start the playoffs over there tomorrow. So do not miss out as we close out the cursed Rams franchise.